Well, let's jump straight back to Westminster now and join our political editor, Christopher Hope, who's joined by the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Tom Emily, thank you. Yes, Sir Ed Davey's with me now. Sir Ed Davey, should the Speaker resign?
No. Liberal Democrats have full confidence in Speaker Hoyle. He was in a very difficult position. Gaza has got lots of emotions. It's a very important issue. And to make sure all views were heard, I think he approached that with a degree of gravity, rightly. Plus, he had to consider the issues about MP security and safety, as we've heard. So it was a difficult position, but I think we should respect him.
He's in a mess, though, isn't he, here? He met with a rival of yours, Sir Keir Starmer, privately in a meeting room. Was that right?
It happens all the time. I have private meetings with the Speaker from time to time. After this interview, I'm going to see him myself. So, that sort of thing happens. I think it is reasonable for party leaders, party whips to talk about issues about MP security and safety and to make sure the Speaker knows those.
How can he stay on, given the third biggest party, you're the fourth biggest party, the third biggest party in the House of Commons, the SNP, have withdrawn support for him?
Well, I don't think they have a veto on who is the Speaker of the House of Commons, nor should they. And to be honest, while I hope we can come together on the issue of such importance as Gaza and send a united signal to the government of Israel that we don't want them to attack Rafah, that there should be an immediate bilateral ceasefire, that we need the aid in for those innocent Palestinian civilians, and we need the hostages released, and there should be a peace process. We need that message sent. And what slightly worried me about the SNP over a number of days and weeks, actually, is that they've sometimes seen this in terms of domestic politics. And I regret that, actually, because it's such a serious issue. We were trying to persuade them to amend their motion, to take on some aboard of what we were saying in our motion, which didn't get called, in order to talk about the longer term, the need for a two-state solution in particular, and a peace process towards that. And the SNP wouldn't do that. And we were left with a little bit of a feeling and suspicion that they weren't doing that for domestic political reasons rather than what was in the interest of Palestine.
You've seen Lindsay Hoyle in 20 minutes or so. What will you be telling him?
That we have confidence in him and that he has our full support. And we recognise it was a difficult decision, difficult position, given the need to hear all voices, the need to take into account MP safety and security. And I also want to listen to him to hear what he has to say.
With respect, though, you're a smaller party in House of Commons. The big parties, Labour and the Tories, they're fighting over this. What do you think he needs to do, Sir Lindsay Hoyle needs to do, to restore the confidence of the House of Commons in him?
Well, first of all, I think the two other parties need to remember this is a serious issue and need to put party political point scoring aside. I think the country expects that, and I think people who want to see peace and a ceasefire and support for Palestinian civilians and the release of the hostages, they want the parties to come together. And I think trying to attack each other and attack the Speaker just is really not good enough. We need a mature, grown-up politics, and I'm afraid if the two parties continue to row like this, that it sends a dreadful signal, I think.
Is he biased?
No. I've certainly never experienced that. He has
calls you enough, he gives Lib Dems enough time?
Well, we'd always like more. He knows that I think we should have more questions to the Prime Minister, for example, and I'm sure he knows that we'd like our amendments called, and we make representations to him. But, you have to understand that he works within standing orders and within convention.
But you broke those standing orders, that's the point, isn't it? He changed the orders to allow Labour a vote.
He didn't break standing orders, is my understanding. He interpreted the convention, and there have been precedents, actually, for what happened last night. And so I think there's a lot of heat in this debate, and given the gravity of the substance of the issue, I really regret that, actually.
Is it being driven by the Tories? They want to have a Tory Speaker going to the next election.
I think you'll have to ask the Conservatives that. I think they've become quite a shambolic government, actually. As a governing party, they seem split many, many ways and can't make their decisions. And so that's one of the reasons why the NHS is in such a mess, the economy is in such a mess. And I'm afraid if the Conservatives need to get their act together, and I don't really think we should be playing party games over who's the next Speaker.
It does matter, though, but yes. We had Sir Geoffrey Cox earlier. He said that if you take the Speaker at his word, he made clear he was taking this measure to allow Labour MPs to vote on one of their party's policies rather than the SNP or government policy. given that, Geoffrey Cox said it allows Britain's enemy, the enemies of this place, to put pressure on your colleagues across all parties and then affect business in the House of Commons, and that's not great.
I have to say, I think that's a rather odd comment. There's nothing that the Speaker has said or done which I think opens up to that threat any greater than it was before.
Well, in the sense that he's allowed, the concern about safety of MPs to affect what happens in the House of Commons chamber.
Well, I think he's right to worry about that. Of course he should. But that wasn't the only reason, I think. He made that clear. And if that had been the only reason, I think one could debate that issue and make sure that we were doing everything we can to make sure that those MPs who've suffered these threats are fully protected, of course. I think the public would want that. But it was also about the substance and the need to have different views heard. And I think he did his best on that point.
Yeah. OK. So Ed Davey there, the leader of the Liberal Democrats, thank you for joining us today on GB News there, with a vote of confidence in the Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, and he's seeing him in 20 minutes. So that's cheering words for the Speaker.